Commander Drake Miller stared at the holographic display showing the alien fleet that had appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. Thousands of warships, each large enough to hold entire human cities, hovered in perfect formation. The collective, military might of humanity, all the nuclear weapons, fighter jets, and battleships, seemed like children's toys compared to what they were facing. "We have an incoming transmission," announced Lieutenant Wilson, her fingers dancing across the control panel. The central screen flickered to life, revealing a bipedal creature with 6 eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern. Its skin appeared metallic, shifting between shades of blue and green as it moved. "Humans." The alien's voice was unnaturally deep, translated through the command center's AI. "I am Admiral Ranak of the Varaxian Empire. Your planet has been selected for integration. Surrender now, and we will allow your species to serve. Resist, and we will demonstrate why over 300 species have fallen before us." Drake's jaw tightened. "And if we refuse both options?" A sound emanated from the alien that might have been laughter. "Then you will be the 314th species to be eradicated by the Empire. You have 6 Earth hours to decide." The Kiyo screen went dark. Drake turned to the assembled leaders of Earth's unified defense force. "Options?" he asked, his voice steady despite the dread building in his stomach. General Torres, representing the Americas, leaned forward. "Our deep space scans confirm what we feared. Their technology outmatches ours by centuries. Conventional warfare is suicide." "What about the Phoenix Protocol?" asked Commander Lee, representing the Asian Alliance. The room fell silent. The Phoenix Protocol was humanity's last resort, an untested weapons system based on experimental quantum technology. "It's not ready," said Dr. Hall, the chief scientist responsible for the project. "The simulations show a 60% chance it would tear a hole in space-time itself. We could destroy our own solar system in the process." Drake nodded grimly. "And the other 40%? We might create a localized disruption that could disable their ships, perhaps even their entire fleet. But it's theoretical at best." Drake walked to the window, looking out at the blue planet below. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and climate catastrophes. They had clawed their way from primitive tribes to a spacefaring civilization. Now, all of it hung in the balance. "Contact the Varaxians," Drake finally said. "Tell them we wish to negotiate terms." The assembled leaders looked at him in shock. "Sir?" Wilson questioned. "We need time," Drake explained. "Have Dr. Hall prep the Phoenix Protocol as our backup. Meanwhile, I want every piece of information we can gather about the Varaxians. Every scan, every communication signal. I want to know more about them than they know about themselves." Drake's mind was racing. Something about the alien admirals, words bothered him. 313 species conquered or destroyed? How had they failed to resist such a clearly aggressive empire? What had they missed that humans might see? "One more thing," Drake added. "Deploy Operation Ghost. I want our stealth ships to slip behind their fleet and place our quantum observers. Let's see what they're hiding." As the command center burst into activity, Drake studied the holographic display of the alien fleet. The ships were arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Too perfect. Every instinct from his decades of military service told him something was off. "What are you hiding?" he whispered to the image of the alien ships. "And more importantly, what are you afraid of?" 6 hours wasn't much time, but humans had always excelled under pressure. It was time to show these Varaxians why that was a terrifying trait in itself. Lieutenant James Reed piloted his stealth craft through the vacuum of space, the specialized quantum-absorbing hull making him virtually invisible to conventional sensors. Behind him, the massive Varaxian command ship loomed like a metallic mountain, its surface adorned with what appeared to be weapon emplacements. "Ghost 3 to command," Reed whispered, despite knowing sound couldn't travel in space. "Old habits from covert ops training died hard. I've reached deployment position. No sign they've detected me." "Proceed with observer placement," came the encrypted response. Reed deployed the tiny quantum observer, a device smaller than his thumb, but containing the most advanced surveillance technology Earth had ever produced. It attached to the alien hull, immediately beginning to transmit data back to Earth. "Observer deployed," Reed confirmed. moving to secondary target. As he maneuvered his craft, something strange caught his attention. The Varaxian ships were maintaining their perfect formation, but there was no evidence of course corrections. No maneuvering thrusters firing, no energy signatures indicating propulsion adjustments. It was as if they were fixed in space. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Drake sat across from a holographic projection of Admiral Ranak. The alien's 6 eyes blinked in alternating patterns as they discussed terms. "Your species will be allowed limited autonomy," Ranak stated. "Your cultural artifacts will be preserved in our archives. Selected humans will be permitted to continue scientific pursuits under Varaxian supervision." "And what guarantees do we have that your empire won't simply eradicate us once we've surrendered our defenses?" Drake asked, deliberately stalling for time. Ranak's metallic skin rippled. "The Varaxian Empire has existed for 12,000 years. We do not waste resources. Compliant species serve, only the defiant are eradicated." Dr. Hall entered the room and discreetly handed Drake a tablet. The commander's eyes widened slightly as he reviewed the incoming data from the quantum observers. "Admiral," Drake said, keeping his voice neutral, "would you permit a small delegation to visit your command ship, to better understand what integration into your empire would entail?" Ranak paused, his 6 eyes focusing intently on Drake. "Your species continues to surprise me, Commander. Most races beg for mercy or launch futile attacks. None request a tour." After a moment, he added, "Very well. You may bring 3 representatives. They will be scanned for weapons." The transmission ended, and Drake immediately turned to Dr. Hall. "Tell me everything." The quantum observers confirmed. "Our suspicions," she explained. "The Varaxian ships, they're not what they appear to be. They're projecting energy fields that our scanners interpret as matter. But the mass readings don't match the visual size. And there's something else. We're detecting biological signatures throughout their fleet, but they're unusual." "Unusual? How?" "They're uniform. Identical across all ships. It's as if what? As if they're copies," Dr. Hall finished. "We think the Varaxians are using some kind of biological technology combined with energy projections to create the appearance of a massive fleet." Drake's mind raced. "How many actual ships do they have? Based on mass readings and energy signatures? Maybe 20, not thousands." Drake smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "We're dealing with an illusionist. They're bluffing. But their technology is still far beyond ours," Dr. Hall cautioned. "Even 20 ships could devastate Earth." "True. But now we know they're not invincible," Drake replied. "And more importantly, we know they're afraid. Afraid enough to create such an elaborate deception." Drake tapped his communication device. "Lieutenant Reed, your new mission is critical. I need you to get close enough to capture a detailed scan of the Varaxian life forms themselves. Look for weaknesses, environmental needs, biological vulnerabilities, anything we can exploit." As Reed acknowledged the order, Drake turned back to Dr. Hall. "And the Phoenix Protocol? Ready to deploy, but still highly experimental." "Keep it as our last resort," Drake ordered. "Meanwhile, let's prepare our delegation for the Varaxian command ship. I think it's time we learned exactly what these aliens are hiding, and why they've been so successful against other species." The shuttle approached the Varaxian command ship with Drake, Dr. Hall, and Major Tom Fisher on board. As they drew closer, the true nature of the alien vessel became clearer. It was indeed massive, but the quantum scans revealed that much of its apparent bulk was energy projection rather than physical structure. "Look at the power readings," Dr. Hall whispered, pointing to her scanner. "They're maintaining these projections constantly. The energy requirements must be astronomical." "Which means they have an incredible power source," Drake reasoned. "Or they're burning through resources at an unsustainable rate." The shuttle entered an opening in the alien vessel, landing in what appeared to be a docking bay. The space was cavernous, but eerily silent. No service crews, no bustling activity one would expect in a military vessel. Admiral Ranak greeted them personally, flanked by 2 other Varaxians. Up close, the aliens were even more unsettling. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, their metallic skin shifting colors with each movement. "Welcome aboard the Dominance," Ranak said. "You are the first species to request diplomatic visitation before submission. Most simply accept their fate." Humans have always been curious, Drake replied carefully. We believe understanding leads to better cooperation. As Ronak led them through the ship, Drake noticed something odd. They encountered very few other Varaxians, and those they did see moved with identical gaits, as if choreographed. The corridors, while impressive, had an artificial quality, like stage sets designed to impress rather than functional spaces. Dr. Hall's scanner, disguised as a translator device, quietly gathered data on the Varaxians' biology. The readings were perplexing. The aliens showed minimal variation in vital signs, body temperature, even minute movements. It was as if they were operating from a single template. Your species has accomplished much in its short history, Ronak commented as they toured what he claimed was the ship's command center. Most races we encounter have barely mastered atomic energy. Perhaps that's why they fell so easily, Drake ventured. Humans have always excelled at warfare, unfortunately. Our history is filled with conflict. Ronak's eyes fixed on Drake. Yes, we have studied your broadcasts. Your species' propensity for violence is concerning. Yet you invited us aboard, Major Fisher noted. That suggests confidence. The outcome is inevitable, Ronak stated flatly. Whether through submission or force, Earth will join the Empire. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Reed had managed to infiltrate deeper into the Varaxian ship using his stealth technology. What he discovered sent chills down his spine. In a massive chamber, hundreds of Varaxians floated in transparent pods, connected to machinery that pulsed with energy. They weren't just similar. They were identical. Command, this is Ghost 3, Reed whispered into his secure comm. You're not going to believe this. They're clones, or something like them. I'm sending visual data now. Back on the tour, Drake received the information through a subtle earpiece. He needed to buy more time. Admiral, Drake said, your empire must require enormous resources to maintain such a fleet. The energy requirements alone would be staggering. Something flickered across Ronak's features, the first genuine emotion Drake had seen. The Empire has conquered hundreds of worlds. Resources are plentiful. Yet you travel in formation. Conserving energy, Dr. Hall observed innocently. An efficient approach. Ronak's 6 eyes narrowed slightly. It is time for you to return to your planet. Have you reached a decision regarding submission? We require more time, Drake replied. Our planetary council needs to vote. You have 12 more hours, Ronak stated. Not because we are generous, but because we are efficient. Bloodshed wastes resources. As they returned to their shuttle, Dr. Hall whispered to Drake, I've analyzed their biology. They're artificial constructs, not fully biological, not fully mechanical. Some kind of synthetic life form. And the power readings? Drake asked. Fluctuating. They're powerful, but unstable. They're burning energy at an unsustainable rate, maintaining this charade. Drake nodded grimly. They're not an empire. They're a deception. The question is, who or what is behind it? The shuttle departed, carrying crucial information that might just give humanity a fighting chance. Back on Earth, the command center hummed with activity as analysts processed the data collected from the Varaxian ship. The holographic display showed a 3-dimensional model of what they now understood to be the truth behind the alien deception. They're constructs, Dr. Hall explained to the assembled leaders. Artificial life forms created to serve as identical soldiers and representatives. The real power, whatever alien species actually controls them, remains hidden. Drake studied the model. So the Varaxians aren't an empire, they're a tool, a weapon. Exactly, Dr. Hall confirmed. And based on the energy readings, they're designed for shock and awe rather than sustained warfare. They project the illusion of overwhelming force to intimidate species into surrendering without a fight. General Torres leaned forward. But they still possess technology far beyond ours. Even if there are only 20 real ships instead of thousands, they could devastate our planet. Yes, Drake acknowledged. But now we know they're bluffing about the scale of their power. And more importantly, we know they want a bloodless victory. They didn't come here expecting a fight. Lieutenant Reed's voice came through the communication system. Command, I've managed to access what appears to be their central database. Transmitting now. the screens filled with alien text and diagrams that the AI began translating. What emerged was a history not of conquest, but of deception. A record of hundreds of worlds that had surrendered without firing a shot, believing resistance was futile against such overwhelming force. "They've been running the same con for centuries," Major Fisher observed. "Show up with an illusory armada, demand surrender, and collect the resources. But there's something else," Dr. Hall said, pointing to energy readings. "The constructs, these Varaxians, they have a fatal flaw. They're powered by an unstable energy source that's sensitive to specific radiation frequencies. They're biological. Components can't tolerate certain wavelengths in our electromagnetic spectrum." Drake's eyes lit up. "Can we exploit that?" "Potentially," Dr. Hall replied. "If we could broadcast a specific frequency across their fleet, we might be able to disrupt their energy systems, like an EMP, but targeted specifically at their biology," Drake mused. "How quickly can we modify our satellites to emit this frequency?" "Hours, not days," Dr. Hall confirmed. "But there's a risk. We don't know how their ships will react if the constructs controlling them suddenly go offline." Drake faced the difficult decision that had fallen to military leaders throughout human history. Act with incomplete information or wait and risk everything. "We have 11 hours before their deadline," he announced. "I want 2 plans. First, modify our satellite network to emit this disruptive frequency. Second, prepare the Phoenix Protocol as a backup. If we can disable their constructs, we may be able to communicate with whoever is really controlling this operation." As Earth scientists and military personnel scrambled to implement the plan, Drake received another transmission request from Admiral Ranak. "Your time grows short, Commander," the Varaxian stated without preamble. "Have your leaders reached a decision?" "We're still deliberating," Drake replied, studying the alien's features with new understanding. "Such an important decision cannot be rushed. Delay is interpreted as resistance," Ranak warned, his metallic skin rippling with what might have been irritation. "The Varaxian Empire has encountered such tactics before." "I assure you, Admiral, we are simply being thorough," Drake countered smoothly. "After all, this is the first contact between our civilizations. We want to ensure we fully understand what integration into your empire entails." Something changed in Ranak's posture. A subtle shift that Drake might have missed if he hadn't been looking for it. The alien was uncomfortable with prolonged negotiation. "Your species' continued questioning is unusual," Ranak observed. "Most understand their position more readily." "Humans have always been skeptical by nature," Drake replied with a thin smile. "It's how we've survived on a planet that has tried to kill us in countless ways." As the transmission ended, Drake turned to his team. "They're getting nervous. Whatever is controlling these constructs, it's not used to extended negotiations. That's our advantage. They expect quick capitulation, not resistance." "Sir," a communications officer called out, "we're detecting energy fluctuations in the Varaxian fleet. Several of the projected ships are showing instability." Drake nodded. "They're struggling to maintain the illusion. Prepare the frequency emitters. We move in 10 hours, just before their deadline expires." The final hours before the deadline ticked away as Earth prepared its defense. Satellite arrays were hastily modified to emit the specific frequency that Dr. Hall's team had identified as potentially disruptive to the Varaxian constructs. Meanwhile, military forces around the globe stood ready, though all new conventional weapons would be largely symbolic against the alien technology. With just 1 hour remaining, Drake addressed the unified command. "For all our history, humanity has faced threats, from nature, from each other, and now from beyond our world. But unlike the species that came before us, we refuse to surrender based on appearances. Today we call their bluff." He turned to Dr. Hall. "Initiate the broadcast." Across Earth's orbit, satellites directed concentrated beams of radiation at the Varaxian fleet. For several tense minutes, nothing appeared to happen. Then, subtle distortions appeared in the formation, ships flickering like bad holograms. "It's working," Dr. Hall whispered, watching the readings. "The energy signatures are destabilizing." On the main view screen, Admiral Ranak appeared, his metallic features contorted in what might have been pain or anger. "What have you done?" The Alien demanded, his voice fluctuating unnaturally. This act of aggression will not be tolerated. We've done nothing but defend ourselves, Drake replied calmly. Your deception ends now, Admiral. Or should I say, construct. We know the truth. About your empire. We know you're artificial beings created to intimidate others into submission. So I ask, who really controls you? The image of Ranak distorted, his 6 eyes blinking rapidly in an uncoordinated pattern. The metallic skin began to lose its cohesion, revealing glimpses of mechanical components beneath. You cannot resist, Ranak insisted, though his voice was breaking up. The directors will... The transmission abruptly cut off. Directors? Drake questioned, looking at the others. We need to press our advantage, increase broadcast power. The intensity of the radiation increased, and the effects on the Varaxian fleet became more pronounced. The illusory ships began to disappear entirely, revealing the much smaller fleet beneath. Just 18 actual vessels. Sir, Lieutenant Wilson called out, we're detecting a new energy signature. Something's emerging from the largest ship, a smaller vessel detached from what had been Ranak's flagship. Unlike the ornate, intimidating Varaxian designs, this craft was sleek and utilitarian. It accelerated away from the disabled fleet. They're running, General Torres observed with surprise. Not all of them, Major Fisher pointed out. The main ships are still there, just disabled. Drake made a quick decision. Target that escaping vessel with a narrowband communication. Let's see who's really been pulling the strings. After several tense moments, a response came through. The screen revealed a creature utterly unlike the imposing Varaxians. Small, with delicate features, large eyes, and grayish skin. It appeared almost fragile. I am Director Maul of the Collective, the alien said, its voice high and wavering. You have destroyed centuries of work. Are you pleased with yourselves? Drake studied the creature, taken aback by its appearance. We defended ourselves against deception and threats of annihilation. I believe that's our right. The alien made a sound that might have been a sigh. You don't understand. The Varaxian constructs were our protection, our only defense in a hostile universe. We created them because we cannot fight. You created weapons to threaten peaceful worlds, Drake countered. We created a deterrent, Director Maul corrected. Our species lacks the physical capabilities for warfare. We have no natural weapons, no aggressive instincts. Before the Varaxian project, dozens of our worlds were conquered or destroyed. We were prey to any species with military ambition. Doctor, Hall stepped forward. So you built the ultimate bluff, an artificial aggressive species that could do what you couldn't. Yes, Maul acknowledged. And it worked for centuries. Species surrendered rather than face what they believed was overwhelming force. We collected the resources we needed and left them largely autonomous. No one had to die. Until someone called your bluff, Drake said. Until humans, Maul agreed, something like fear in his large eyes. No species has ever seen through the deception so quickly. No species has ever developed a countermeasure instead of surrendering. Do you understand why this terrifies us? What you have done in days took our best minds generations to develop. The implications hung in the air between them. Humanity had just demonstrated why it might be the most frightening species the galaxy had yet encountered. The following weeks brought unprecedented change to Earth. The disabled Varaxian fleet remained in orbit, its synthetic crews inoperative after the targeted radiation broadcast. The true controllers of the operation, the beings called the Myth Collective, had retreated to the edge of the solar system, where tentative diplomatic communications continued. Drake stood in the newly established Interstellar Command Center, watching as engineers and scientists pored over the alien technology they'd been granted access to. Director Maul had reluctantly agreed to technological exchange as part of ongoing negotiations. It's remarkable, Dr. Hall said, joining him at the observation window. Their propulsion systems are centuries beyond ours, but their weapons technology is surprisingly limited. Because they never actually fought wars, Drake replied. They created the illusion of military might without developing the reality. Major Fisher approached with a tablet displaying the latest report. The Myth have provided access to their star charts. They've mapped most of this galactic quadrant, including the locations of over 40 other spacefaring civilizations. And how many of those did they subjugate with their Varaxian deception? Drake asked. 37, Fisher confirmed. The others were either too primitive to be worth the effort, or had already been conquered by another species called the Drex before the myth could reach them. Drake frowned. So there are actual predatory species out there, not just bluffers. Like the myth. Yes, but according to the myth, the Drex disappeared 2 centuries ago. No one knows why. General Torres joined the conversation, her expression serious. The United Nations Security Council has reached a decision about the Varaxian technology. They want to adapt it, create our own version of the synthetic soldiers. That would be a mistake, Drake said firmly. The Varaxians worked because no one had seen anything like them before. Now that the secret is out, such deceptions will be less effective. I agree, Dr. Hall added. Besides, the myth spent generations perfecting that technology. We'd be better off developing our own approaches based on human strengths. And what strengths would those be? Torres asked. Compared to species with centuries of space travel experience, what do humans bring to the galactic table? Drake turned to the window, watching a team of engineers disassembling a Varaxian construct. Adaptability. Innovation under pressure. The myth created one solution and relied on it for centuries. When faced with a threat, humans don't just accept the parameters, we change them. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent message from the communications team. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from beyond the solar system. It's not from the myth. The main screen activated, revealing a new alien species, reptilian in appearance, with scaled skin and vertical pupils. Unlike the delicate myth, or the artificial Varaxians, these creatures exuded natural menace. This is Commander Thask of the Drex Remnant, the alien announced. We have detected Varaxian energy signatures in your system, followed by their disappearance. Explain. Drake stepped forward, measuring his words carefully. This is Commander Drake Miller of Earth. The Varaxians attempted to subjugate our world. We defended ourselves. The reptilian commander's eyes widened slightly. You defeated Varaxians? We exposed them for what they were, constructs created by the Myth Collective to intimidate other species. A sound emerged from the Drex commander. That might have been laughter. After all these years, someone finally saw through the deception. Impressive. The Myth have been a nuisance since they stole technology from our outposts centuries ago. You're saying the Myth's technology originally came from your species? Dr. Hall asked. Much of it, Thask confirmed. Before our empire fractured in civil war, we controlled this quadrant. The Myth were insignificant then, scavengers who picked through the remains of our conflicts. Drake exchanged glances with his team. The galactic history was becoming more complex by the moment. Why contact us now? Drake asked directly. Because any species that could defeat Varaxians is worth knowing, Thask replied. The Remnant is rebuilding. We seek allies with potential. Or you're assessing potential threats, Drake countered. The Drex commander's scaled lips pulled back, revealing sharp teeth. Perceptive. Yes, Commander Drake, we are assessing whether humans will be allies, subjects, or obstacles in the restored Drex Empire. And if we choose to be none of those things? That, said Thask, would be most interesting of all. We will watch your development with great interest. The transmission ended. Drake turned to his team, his expression grim. Contact the Myth. Immediately. I think they haven't told us everything about galactic politics, or why they're really here. 6 months after first contact, Earth had transformed. Humanity's understanding of science and technology had leaped forward decades in weeks, as both the Myth and, surprisingly, the Drex Remnant provided technical knowledge, each seemingly trying to win favor with the emerging human powers. The United Earth Defense Force headquarters in Geneva bustled with activity as representatives from nations around the world coordinated the planet's new unified space program. At the center of it all, Drake oversaw the construction of Earth's first true interstellar vessel, the Defiance. The propulsion systems are online, Dr. Hall reported, reviewing diagnostic data on her tablet. Using the Myth gravitational folding, technology combined with our own fusion approaches, we've achieved efficiency their engineers thought impossible. Because they never questioned their own designs, Drake noted. They found something that worked and stuck with it for centuries. Major Fisher, now Colonel Fisher, approached with security reports. The Drex delegation is requesting access to our weapons research again. I've delayed them, but they're persistent. Drake nodded. Keep them focused on cultural exchange. I don't trust their sudden generosity. As they discussed strategy, an aide rushed in. Commander, we're receiving multiple distress signals from the Myth colony and the Proxima Centauri system. The main screen activated, showing Director Mole's agitated face. Earth Command, we are under attack. Drex warships have entered the system and are targeting our settlements. They claim we violated territorial agreements from centuries ago. Drake immediately ordered, deploy our rapid response vessels. Alert the Defiance crew. We're accelerating the launch schedule. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're also receiving a message from the Drex. Commander Thask's reptilian features appeared on a split screen alongside the panicked Myth director. This conflict does not concern Earth, the Drex commander stated flatly. This is enforcement of ancient territorial claims. You're attacking a peaceful settlement within 4 light-years of Earth, Drake countered. That makes it our concern. Consider carefully, human, Thask warned. The Myth deceived your world and hundreds of others. Why defend them? We're not defending the Myth specifically, Drake replied. We're establishing a principle. Unprovoked aggression near our star system will not be tolerated. The Drex commander's vertical pupils narrowed. You overestimate your capabilities, Commander. Your species has barely left its cradle. Drake smiled thinly. Perhaps. But I recommend you review the historical records the Myth provided about humanity. Specifically, examine what happens when technologically superior forces underestimate humans fighting to protect their principles. Hours later, the newly commissioned Defiance exited Earth's atmosphere, accompanied by 12 smaller vessels. They carried a modest complement of weapons based on modified Myth technology, but their true strength lay elsewhere, in strategies and approaches neither alien species had anticipated. Upon reaching the Proxima Centauri system, they found 3 Drex warships bombarding the small Myth colony. The reptilian vessels were imposing, organic-looking craft with weapon systems pulsing with energy. They outgun us at least 5-1, Colonel Fisher observed from the tactical station. Conventional weapons, yes, Drake agreed. Open a channel. Commander Thask appeared on screen, seeming amused by the human intervention. So Earth sends its infant fleet to die for the Myth deception. A noble but futile gesture. This is your only warning, Drake stated calmly. Cease your attack on the Myth colony and withdraw from this system. Or what, human? Thask challenged. Or we'll demonstrate why emerging species are sometimes the most dangerous, Drake replied. You and the Myth have both made the same mistake, assuming that age equals advantage. But while you've been refining the same technologies for centuries, we've been developing entirely different approaches to problem solving. Drake signaled to Dr. Hall, who initiated what they called the Achilles Protocol, a multi-layered attack, unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. First, targeted electromagnetic pulses specifically calibrated to the Drex communication frequencies, temporarily blinding their coordination. Next, hundreds of small drones deployed from the human vessels, each carrying a precision disruptor that attached to the Drex ship's hulls. What is this? Thask demanded as his ship's systems began failing. What have you done? We studied both Myth and Drex technology, Drake explained. You both rely on the same fundamental principles with shared vulnerabilities, that neither of you ever thought to address, because you've been using variations of the same technology for too long. The Drex weapon systems went offline across their fleet, leaving the powerful ships suddenly defenseless. This is impossible, Thask growled. Your species was planet-bound mere months ago. Yes, Drake agreed, and that fresh perspective is precisely why we saw what you both missed. Now, I suggest you withdraw and reconsider your approach to galactic politics. Earth and its neighboring systems are establishing a new principle of peaceful coexistence, backed by something more valuable than ancient technology: innovation. As the Drex fleet retreated, the implications rippled across known space. Humanity had done what hundreds of other species could not. They had challenged the established powers not through overwhelming force, but through adaptability and creative thinking. In the months that followed, representatives from dozens of worlds, many former victims of the Varaxian deception, reached out to Earth, seeking alliance with the species that had changed the balance of power through sheer ingenuity. Director Mole, meeting with Drake after the incident, summed it up best. Now I understand why humans terrify even the most advanced species. It's not your weapons or your aggression. It's your refusal to accept limitations. Where we see insurmountable obstacles, you see puzzles to solve. That is truly frightening to those who have relied on the same advantages for centuries. Drake smiled. That's the thing about humans, Director. We don't believe in no-win scenarios, and that might be the most disruptive force in the galaxy. The end.